Let's consider another regression example of omitted variable bias. This one's a little bit fanciful, but suppose we have a regression where we're using a sample of neighborhoods, in the Bay Area. So our unit of observation is a neighborhood. So you can imagine the neighborhood around Santa Clara University, the neighborhood where I live, Willow Glen neighborhood, Los Altos neighborhood, Los Gatos neighborhood. So there's different neighborhoods. There's hundreds or even thousands of neighborhoods all over the Bay Area. And in these neighborhoods, suppose we had a way of looking at police reports or insurance reports, and we could count the number of catalytic converters. A catalytic converter is a part of the muffler system of cars that contains heavy metals or precious metals, rare metals, that bond to toxic additions to the gasoline and so prevent toxins from being emitted out of the vehicle. These catalytic converters are often stolen by thieves and sold to scrapyards that then recycle the metals in them. Of course, the owner has to buy a new catalytic converter, so there's no recycling really going on. So it's a big problem around the country and in the Bay Area. So imagine we have a measure of this, how many catalytic converters are stolen at the neighborhood, maybe on a per car basis. Over the month of January 2021. And our explanatory variable is the average income of the neighborhood. And suppose we estimate beta 1 hat is positive. So now it looks like, more catalytic converters are stolen, the wealthier the neighborhood is. That's what we're estimating here, that being in a wealthier neighborhood makes it more likely that catalytic converters are stolen. Now, we might worry that there is an omitted variable, so there's a positive relationship, we might think, between income of the neighborhood and stolen catalytic converters, and that positive relationship might be, well, there's sort of more cars that are worth stealing, and if auto thieves are going to go out and try and steal stuff of cars, they might as well go to places where there's nicer cars, so nicer cars are in wealthier neighborhoods. So we might think that. But there's an omitted variable which is Prius owners. So Prius cars, it turns out, especially older models, have catalytic converters that are both easy to remove and more desirable because the Prius is a hybrid and so doesn't actually use as much gas. So there aren't as much toxic chemicals that are bonding to the precious metals inside the catalytic converters, so they're apparently perhaps more desirable by thieves. So higher income people are likely to own more Priuses, and Priuses are likely to be stolen more. So now we see that our original estimate of beta 1 hat is probably biased. It's too positive. It isn't income that's leading to lots of thefts of catalytic converters. It's ownership of Priuses that's leading to lots of theft of catalytic converters. If poor people owned lots of Priuses, then we would see a lot of stolen catalytic converters in poor neighborhoods. So the income, in some sense, is a very small part, perhaps not even any part, of whether catalytic converters are stolen. So if we included Prius owner rate, say, in the neighborhood, we would expect beta 1 now to be small or maybe even statistically insignificant. Average income no longer matters in explaining stolen catalytic converters. Instead, it's the rate of Prius ownership that explains the incidence of stolen catalytic converters. So remember, again, this is not our unit of observation here, is not the individual level, it's the neighborhood level. So that's another example of omitted variable bias. Going towards our table where we had before, we have a case of positive underlying coefficient, or maybe zero underlying coefficient, positive relationship between income of the neighborhood and Prius owning, and positive relationship between Prius owning and getting catalytic converters stolen. So our coefficient would go from, say, 6.4 to 4.4, or smaller, might go to 0.4 in this case, because we think the direct effect of income might be very small. It's really a Prius effect that's leading to these stolen catalytic converters.